Welcome to Getting the Most Out of ShareFile, and thank you for joining us today. We are some of the members of your product management, SE, and CSE team, aka Customer Success Engineer team. So for the first roughly third of our session today, we're going to go over ShareFile's security options, secure by default. Now, I understand that we have a mixed audience, so we're going to focus many of these content points on two main interaction vectors, both what the day-to-day end user will see and experience, and what the administrative user will see and experience in terms of managing ShareFile for the organization. Midway through, we're going to switch off to our special guest, Charlie Brinson, to go over, as he had stated, recent updates to ShareFile's multi-factor authentication. This is a pretty substantial rework, so we want to give it its due. And obviously that piggybacks on the security section, pretty big advance there. And finally, Evan's going to close us out with collect, collaborate, and close out your files and workflows before we switch over to our live Q&A. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So in talking about our security first foundation for ShareFile accounts, there are a couple of things, and we'll start at the very beginning. When our employees or our clients, vendors, any external parties with whom we exchange data in ShareFile, when anyone who's a user on your company's ShareFile account interacts with ShareFile, the very first instance that they're going to see your corporate branding is in what we call the subdomain, right? So the domain is sharefile.com. Every ShareFile account, your support articles, your help desk, all that other stuff, documentation is at the top level domain of sharefile.com. And your company gets its own unique slice of sharefile.com. In this case, we're using our demo company, the Acme Corporation, famous for their anvils, world renowned. And so we have a subdomain of Acme Corporation. You can also see that the branding starts right here in the browser with, maybe we don't talk about these all the time, but this is what's known as a favicon, a favorite icon. So we've got a little anvil in the top of my Chrome browser tab representing the Acme Corporation. These are things that you can select on behalf of your company, as well as your overall color scheme and background image here, which we can see we've switched this to a nice red and black, as well as my corporate logo right here. And this is just a very basic customization, but of course, bear in mind, you have lots of options there. Now we will go ahead and sign in. I'm not going to walk through the MFA process in detail because I am going to save that for, again, our guest host, Charlie. But we can see that since I'm not using my corporate single sign-on. So you may be saying, well, why are we talking about branding and logos when we're talking about security first? Hopefully in this day and age, everyone is well aware of verifying links that you click, making sure that they represent someone you know and do business with, or in some way kind of checking and doing a follow through rather than just blindly clicking things, logging into things, right? So in our opinion, it starts with identity, and it's important to reflect your trusted identity and trusted brand with your employees, partners, any other external parties, your clients, etc. That being said, now that we're in, we also want to point out, regardless of whether I'm a licensed employee user of, in this case, the Acme Corporation, or whether I'm some type of external party, this is Acme's ShareFile account. Acme owns everything that happens. There may be other tools on the market where individuals can have their own accounts that they own and somehow they merge up with a company and its data from the ground up. That is not the way ShareFile is built. If the Acme Corporation owns their ShareFile tenant and they invite me to interact with some of that data, that's all under their roof. They own everything. Everything that I do, what I download, what I upload, all logs, the whole paper trail, everything. If I happen to also use ShareFile, let's say for my tax returns with my accountant, and I have a login, and I'm the same person that's interacting with Acme, that is wholly separate and has nothing to do with my interactions here. So just want to clarify that. The governance of users and management of users from the ground up is kind of central to our security approach. Also, want to point out the ShareFile Trust Center. So on the more administrative and compliance end of things, I do want to mention that we have a number of compliance certifications, including our SOC 2 Type 2 report, International Standards Organization, 27001 and 27701. Depending on how your account is configured, you may be under HIPAA protection as well. If you have questions about that, I do urge you to contact your CSE. That is something that is available depending on which plan you're on, but still requires some configuration in order to turn on. PCI compliance, a SIG-Lite questionnaire, GDPR if you have any business, clients, contacts, etc. in Europe, very important. You can find all of this information here at trust.sharefile.com. Some of it is behind our non-disclosure agreement, so you will need to actually log in and accept that NDA, just verifying that you won't give away our secret sauce if we give you our security details. Even if you're a small business, some of these documents may be extremely important to have on file, if nothing else, for the mere purpose of your cyber liability or errors and omissions insurance. So I urge you to give this some attention and make sure you have what you need. Again, that is trust.sharefile.com. So moving right along, so we've talked about the branding, governance, and the more formalized aspects of security as a framework here. So let's get a little more into admin controls and some day-to-day operations as well. So looking at what the end user does, a lot of our customers really just use ShareFile at its most convenient, which is either I log in or maybe I'm accessing this same tool through our plugin for Microsoft Outlook. So it's baked into my email on my desktop or any number of means to just simply do what the name says and share a file, right? I can log in and click Share Files, drag and drop content from my desktop or browse stuff stored in ShareFile and provide a link directly to anyone I want to, whether that's sending it to them through GoToWebinar chat or an email or a Teams or Slack message, etc. Just clicking create link will give me a web link that I can do with what I please. However, we also have some options for the end user to configure how secure or how convenient this link will be. So what do we want the recipient of this link to do? Can they view only and not possess their own copy of the document? Can they download it? Bearing in mind that, of course, if they have their own copy, we're out of the game at that point. There's no controlling what they do with it after they own their own copy. Or do we even want to allow them to be able to collaborate with us and edit the document live via Microsoft Office Online? That does require a login. After we determine what they can do, let's determine how hard it is for them to get in. We can make this as simple as a public link that you simply click and get the content, or we can require a name and email address purely for tracking purposes and no actual account creation or login. Or we can actually specify that whoever's going to access this content must log in with a valid ShareFile account underneath my ShareFile tenants umbrella, in this case, again, the Acme Corporation. If they don't have an account already, it will prompt them to create one. And we can even restrict it to only internal employees with that login as well. Wrapping up our basic security options for sharing links, we have a time period for this link to be valid. This can be up to 180 days, 3 months, 30 days, a week, a day. It can never expire as well, depending on what administrative options have been selected on our account. That dictates what's available in this menu to the end users. And we also have some watermarking options and whether or not I want to be notified when this link is accessed. So these are the basic options for sharing either a file or even an entire folder. And before we dive a little bit deeper into how to set some defaults here, let's look at the alternative to directly sharing files and folders, which is still a means of quote unquote sharing content, but it works a little bit differently. So if I send you a link, as I just demonstrated, again, that can be as simple as just clicking that link and getting the content. It's got its own expiry parameters, its own access parameters. But what if we need ongoing collaboration on a group of files that's going to be going on for some time? So I actually have a folder structure underpinning ShareFile. This is entirely up to me. This is my company shared drive that my administrators can organize as we see fit and give me whatever rights we need. And clicking into this to set someone up for ongoing access to a particular folder is as simple as clicking the People tab and clicking Add People to Folder. Now, this does assume that you have the rights to do this within your organization, and there are organizations that limit the ability to add more people to folders for good reason. So this is something that is usually implemented strategically and should be, but assuming we've got all the appropriate permissions, adding someone who's not already in the system is as simple as just clicking Create New User and filling in their email, first name, and last name, whichever permissions they should have on this folder, and clicking Add. Once we've got users in here, if I have permission to manage this, it's as simple as just checking and unchecking which permissions each person or group, in this case, this is a distribution group comprised of several users, which permissions your user or group should have, and clicking Save. For anyone with this last box checked here, admin permission, this does not make them an administrator on your ShareFile account. This is actually a unique role called folder administrator, which means that an individual with this permission can add and remove other people to and from this folder and alter the permissions of other people on this folder without affecting anything else on your account. We tend to get a lot of questions about that. I know our customers who are on IT teams, especially in large organizations, often we hear the word admin and we think, wow, that means a whole lot of elevated rights. But the folder admin is not the same as being a global administrator in ShareFile. So just wanted to clarify that. All right, so going to wrap up some of these next points a little more quickly so that we can leave enough time for our other presenters and Q&A at the end, right? But just wanted to talk briefly about regarding those file sharing permissions that we saw when I went to share a file or a folder. As a user, I had all of these options here. Share out a public link, require sign-in, set an expiration period, etc. As an administrator, I'm able to actually fix the defaults that show up if my users don't change those settings, as well as remove certain options from the menu completely to make sure that everything that's coming and going to and from my ShareFile account is in line with my corporate policies for security. That can be found under Settings, Admin Settings, Advanced Preferences, your File Settings. And so the checkboxes, we're essentially toggling on and off which options show in that menu, and then Further down, we have our defaults. And so this is what's going to be pre-selected if your user doesn't change anything. It's as simple as that. And please note that whether I'm sharing something outbound or requesting a file inbound, I need to click Save to specify these options and defaults, and they are managed separately. I will say anecdotally that generally what we tend to see is that request settings are a little more easygoing because we're not offering any data. We're just giving someone a blank box that they can submit their file into. And of course, ShareFile has inherent virus scanning that occurs at point of entry as well as once daily. So there are several mechanisms at play to keep you safe and secure while doing that. Any file that were to be found to be potentially malicious would be quarantined for admin review before being released to any users. So it would show with an exclamation point and like a warning caution triangle. So you don't have to worry about that. All right. Moving right along, so we covered our user level controls, folder permissions, granular permissions, folder administrators versus account administrators. We also have, and this is something that if you've been with ShareFile for a while, this may be a little bit newer for you, but you actually have the ability to look through your people, whether they're clients or employees, click on a user, so we're going to pick on my colleague Joe here, and view this user's activity and security alerts. So if there are security alerts, they would show here. Or if we just want to dig into Joe's activity and see what's going on lately, we can actually click View Folder Activity for a given time period, the last 24 hours in this case, and see what Joe has interacted with. And so we've actually got a paper trail, which is nice. A couple of the other things, so these security alerts, very important. And we can configure our security alert settings in admin settings, security, and security alert settings, so that individuals, different types, will be notified when any one of these events occurs. So the nice thing here is one of the unfortunate realities of today's tech landscape is the fact that a lot of times a malicious party will attempt to gain access to an organization under the guise of being an employee via an employee's compromised credentials, etc. So our security alerts can be customized to actually not only notify an administrator, but actually flag down and notify a user themselves. Hey, someone's signing in from another country halfway around the world. Mr. and Mrs. Employee, Mr. and Mrs. Client, was this you? Do you want that to go to all the users? Do you want that to just be for administrators only, etc.? That being said, I think that's a really opportune time to hand off to our product manager, Charlie Brinson, regarding multi-factor authentication, one of those all too important steps in the process that confirms the user is who they say they are. So I will go ahead and switch off my screen if you want to take it away, Charlie.
So with ShareFile, one of the biggest things about login is making sure that everything's secure. As Bruno was mentioning, we really want to make sure that you're leveraging a secure password. So we give administrators the ability to set a password policy based on the configuration that makes sense for your account. We have a minimum, but we also recommend that administrators make it more complex. Just because the world it's a tougher place to be with all the bad actors out there. So the more you can secure your account, the better. The other thing we recommend is also leveraging multi-factor authentication. And one of the updates that went in, I think it got to 100% of all customers yesterday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, but is an update to the multi-factor authentication flow. So I'm going to walk you through the changes that we made in an incognito browser on the same account that I was logged into. So from an end user perspective, I had already had multi-factor authentication set up, but the new flow is going to, as I enter in my email address, I enter in my password, now it's going to ask me to verify my identity. One of the changes that we made is previously text message or SMS had been that primary option that was there. But now we have an option to be able to leverage an authenticator app. And so authenticator apps are something that's recommended in the industry, across all security for authentication. It just allows you to be able to have a little bit more control of what's there. It's a rotating code that every 30 seconds will change. I use it in a lot of different applications, and so my authenticator app actually has a lot of different options there. If for some reason you only have SMS set up, it will continue to use that. But now we're giving you the option to be able to switch between your different providers. So if you wanted to get a text message or an SMS or use the authenticator app, you can be able to do that. So really all you do is you just take the code, you enter it in, you press sign in, and if for some reason it doesn't work because you may be using the wrong code, you can still switch back to be able to use your phone number and get a text message to it. So now we're giving you some alternatives to be able to make sure that flow works very seamlessly. And let me type in the right code that I just got texted to me, and it will take you into the product. So super easy, giving you some more flexibility as an end user to select what is your preferred method of being able to do it. And you can also be able to, in the personal settings section of your account, when you're logged in as an end user, you can be able to scroll down to the sign in options under your ShareFile credential. And this is leveraging, if you are leveraging the ShareFile credentials, if you're leveraging something like SSO, which is called single sign on, that may be something that's being done through your company as opposed to directly through ShareFile. So it may not work if you're in that scenario. But basically, you would click on the Manage Multifactor. It's going to open up a drawer, and then you can be able to choose which method is your primary. You could be able to switch around and say, you know what? Hey, I'm receiving text all the time. I want to make that my primary. So that's going to be the first option that appears when you log in. It will actually go ahead and kick off a text message to that phone number that you have. Or maybe you're heading out of the country and you don't have text messages coming in. You could switch around to be using the Authenticator app, which could be leveraged offline, and that way you continue to be able to access, via Wi-Fi even without a phone signal. There are also some app-specific passwords. So if you're leveraging some of the legacy applications like FTP, the ShareFile user management tool as an administrator, you can be able to generate an app-specific password, which would help you be able to bypass the MFA option, which may not be supported in one of those legacy authentications. Then you can also be able to generate backup codes. This would be in the scenario that for some reason you lose your phone number or you lose your phone and you don't have access to the Authenticator app. These backup codes, if you store them in a secure place, can be leveraged or as a one-time code to be able to get in for the multi-factor if you need to. So super easy from a end user perspective to customize it to how you want to be able to do it. I'm also going to walk through the admin side of things. And so from an admin perspective, you could be able to go into the sign-in policy under security of your account. And then we have some options for multi-factor authentication, which will open up here. This is actually going to be a new configuration that we didn't have previously. So now you can be able to choose to say, hey, these are the only methods that I want to leverage. So maybe you want to turn off phone numbers and have your entire account just use authenticator apps. You could be able to disable the phone numbers there and make it so it's only authenticator apps. You could also make it so it's required for clients as well as for employees to be able to leverage multi-factor. That would be recommended. It's a more secure option for you to be able to do. You could also, if you want to reduce it to just SMS or only voice call, you could be able to choose that. But I would recommend for accessibility reasons to go ahead and allow both text message and voice call as an option on your account. But really, we want to give you the ability to customize it based on your needs. So that's really what we're doing here. So as I make this required for client contacts, as the clients are logging into my account, If it wasn't required before and they didn't have it set up, it's going to walk them through during their next login, configuring the multi-factor authentication into the flow. So those are really the main changes that happened. There is going to be a flow when they log in for the first time as these new settings have been released, that as a personal settings, if they wanted to create a new, excuse me, let me go down to the manage multi-factor, a new authenticator app, they could be able to do that. So basically just the option of saying, hey, I want to create an authenticator app here. You can name it something. I'm just going to call it maybe like my iPad. And then hopefully this will work. Sometimes the scanning on my QR code on the phone acts funny on the monitor. So we'll see, there it goes. And so now what I would do is just say continue. I'll go ahead and put in my code to be able to do that. I can choose to make it the primary. I've now verified that code. And now if I'm on my iPad or I'm on my Google Pixel Pro, I could be able to choose between which one I actually have readily available. So if for some reason I lose my phone, I have a backup option on my iPad. And then I could always choose to make that primary. I could delete it, create a new one. A lot of different options that are available. But that's the gist of how the new multi-factor authentication works. So I can go ahead and pass it over to Evan, I think, to continue the presentation, unless there are some questions that may have come up about this. And it looks like there are no questions. So Evan.
But that was a huge improvement for us with the MFA updates for our clients. We've definitely been making a lot of progress there with the authentication. So putting that work into the flow, getting the right info, making sure that the client has less friction as they're getting into the account, but that there's security tied to it. That's all super important. So now we'll get on to the next side of ShareFile, collecting how you interact, how you work things out. So depending on the type of license that you have with ShareFile, you know, there are specific features and capabilities that are opened up. But just when you're just starting and thinking about how you want to use ShareFile in general, I think the first thing you look at is, you know, where does your workflow itself start? You know, how are you going and reaching out, interacting with your clients? How are you gathering information? How are you securing that data? So a lot of different ways to interact with the ShareFile application. So if you're starting and you're looking at the web application here, you know, this is where administrators, as you saw through Bruno, or where you can control your own settings, or where administrators can do specific things. But also this is where a lot of, you know, the richest admin and like workflow type features that we can look at will be present. But a bulk of ShareFile and our clients also, you know, access it in different ways. So if you're starting out and you have a team that work out of compiling or composing emails, that ShareFile can be a plugin we support for Outlook desktop app or the new Outlook add-in if you are working on M365 or making that transition. We do also have clients for Google or Gmail as well. But in this case, we do have a lot of the same similar thresholds from a plugin perspective, where it's now tied to maybe the beginning of my workflow here as a user, where email is that starting point for me. I do have the ability to request or attach. We did see that there were some defaults that Bruno showed us that could be tied inherently to the backend. So I do have abilities to update specific permissions, or we can also set thresholds as an account to say if a file is over a specific size, that maybe we want to send it automatically. So I can bring in, you know, a larger file and drag it into my email here. And there could also be some kind of component with the plugin that could look at a file and convert it. In this case, I added a smaller file, so it didn't flag it. But let's say that I try to bring in a larger file to the email. Let's see, maybe it won't even work in this one based on my company. Well, either way, let's see if I have one that will fit. Let's do this one. There we go. So I'll bring in a file that is a little bit larger. It should automatically convert. It looks like it's not working for me right now, but let me go check. So this is good for the sake of demo. I have a control here. This is what every end user has. So we can see here that there's thresholds for auto converting of file types. I'll get it to be a little more strict, but either way, this is one point of determining where does your end user start their workflow. Are they just attaching files we want it to convert natively through ShareFile? Are we sending it out? Either way, it has the same security tied to it. So regardless of where the file is coming from, there we go. I just kicked it off. So what it did is it auto converted all 3 of those files. It realized it was out of security. I don't want to bog down Exchange. Let's auto convert that over and send it safely through Outlook. And so send it safely through ShareFile. And so effectively all it's doing is there's a temporary link here that is tied to the security settings. How long does someone have access to it? Is it required that they have to log in? Furthermore, if I do want to also encrypt the body of the message, I do have the ability to turn on message encryption as well. So if I'm sending out sensitive information and I have bank information or social security data or anything of that nature that I need to send to this client, ShareFile will now act as a tool where here it looks native in my Outlook, but it's wrapped as a wrapper for the client as I send this, where they're going to have to log into ShareFile to interact with the message, to view, and so on. And so that's one avenue is, hey, are we starting this workflow as a user who's composing an email? Because I do have that ability. Now, another option that we have for heavy or offline work is going to be the ShareFile for Windows or ShareFile for Mac. So depending on the preference of your end users, we do have a plugin. So ShareFile for Windows here is a virtual drive. It's a representation of the data that lives in ShareFile. So I've authenticated in through my account, and I now have access to all of my files and folders. Now, there are ways through group policy that I could choose to maybe only mount specific folders or specific drives, but either way, it's going to look local to my file system on my computer. So if you have more resource heavy workers, it will work in that sense that I have a folder here. This is a folder in ShareFile. I can see symbolically that it's tied to the S drive. That is an application that's running on my computer, something that you can install behind the scenes, but I have the same access to those same files that we were looking at. So not only do I have the ability to, choose files or folders, but it has right-click functionality where I can see the ShareFile application is also following me. So if I need to get data out of here and I'm not even working out of email, ShareFile can be used as its own messaging system. So I can choose to download this data if I want. I can make it available offline. So there'll be a 24-hour period in which I can make this data available as a local cached copy on my machine and then pop it back in. For Chromebooks, there is like a Chromium-based ShareFile app. Like anytime you authenticate into ShareFile through a Chrome browser, you can install ShareFile. So I know that I see a question there in the chat. On Chromebooks, that there is a way that you can install like a local ShareFile kind of edition that can be seen. Let me just here as like a kind of like its own little application that's Google friendly. There is some potential there as well for something that's running in my taskbar. I just wanted to point that out because I saw someone asked it as a question. But either way, I have all of that capability here with ShareFile. I can make it available offline. I can choose to share that data. So similar to what we could see in the power that we have, I still have that same ability here. So I can get a link like we saw that Bruno was doing. Same thing, I can edit the options. It has all of that tied to me. So security is always going to be following me. Or I could choose to send it to specific people. So much like I could use Outlook, maybe I'm someone who's not working out of that structure, but I am working out of a desktop heavy resource. I can still encrypt a body of a message or send it to specific people that are clients of mine. I have a lot of options to do that. And again, to edit the experience for what the expectation is for when someone receives this link, what they can do. Another real benefit here that's awesome is that I have the ability, as I'm starting here in my Microsoft account, that you can, if you're a co-author or you're creating documents on the go, that ShareFile can be added as a connected service or a place to M365 infrastructure. So I can open, save files. I can open files out of here with macros, as I have from Excel. And all I'm looking at is, okay, well, maybe this is native to the desktop app that I'm using, where ShareFile can be a place that I can open or save files to. But it's also somewhere that I could, just take a file here and open it, and it's going to open locally or natively with the file type or whatever product I have that opens those file types natively. So desktop work, desktop tools are very useful depending on the type of experience you want your customers to have. But as you can see, I can interact with the application. It's going to ask me to sign in because I haven't logged in for a while, but in order to save back, it would allow me to open, edit the documents, save it back to the location. So even from a co-authoring standpoint, perhaps I want to come in here and check this file out, or maybe I want to work on it alongside my colleague. So great use with the desktop app, great use with working out of partnering with Microsoft in that sense as well. And then back to the web application itself, that's where a lot of the power is going to be. I think I logged myself out when I downloaded the ShareFile app, so we'll just finish the demo from here. So here's that desktop app. I have all of those same capabilities. If I need to do ad hoc type sharing, I can request or share. All of that is tied into the back end. But maybe you want to work out of a folder structure, files, folders. You have that same ability. Microsoft path limitations. It's the same data that we were just looking at. It's just where do I need it to follow me? So anything I was even doing there, I can also right click inside ShareFile. I can check out documents. I can open documents specific to Microsoft now, which is great. Another connection and partnership that we have is that I can choose to not just view the documents, but I can also elect to edit if we have this turned on. Now on the demo account I'm on right now, we have this disabled, but there is a feature in which you can enable it for the tenant. I would then have the ability to potentially share this with a client if I wanted them to co-edit or work on this alongside me. So a lot of flexibility with what ShareFile can provide to you. Now, when you're looking at the web application, you will notice a couple other components that are tied now at more of a premium value. So with the premium license of ShareFile, we have introduced some AI assisted or AI powered components. So this will be where I'm mentioning, the richest kind of workflow admin, but also end user experience. The web application is where a lot of more rollouts and feature enhancements will be. So specific to the AI, we do have a wonderful feature here for AI Assistant that would allow me to look at the document. This is something that only a licensed user would be able to use on premium tier license or higher, but allow me to understand the contents of the document if I need to ask questions or to summarize a document or to get a main point. And this is a very easy setting as an admin. If you haven't validated this out, get in touch with your customer success team. Let's have a conversation about it. I'm in the web app right now. I can click here. Looks like Tepe, my good friend, is the aligned CSE here. So if I wanted to have a conversation about some of these features, I could pop this open and fill out a form, and Tepe would reach out to me. We could have a great conversation about it. But either way, there are some benefits here, but I understand it's not something where you just want to have it on and open the floodgates within your organization. So making those steps, understanding if you're on the proper licensing to even have this in the first place is important. But a great feature from a document viewer perspective, from a collaboration, to make sure that you understand how I'm interacting with the document. So either way, all of this is following me with the, how am I logging in? How long is this data living in ShareFile at the folder level? And you have your own choice as an end user. Where's my starting point? What's the best place for me to have less friction to interact with ShareFile? I find for a lot of customers, ShareFile for Windows is great because maybe you're working out of, CRM, a resource management, some kind of intranet type tool. and you need ShareFile to interact with it in another manner. I need a virtual drive. I need something I can open quickly on the go. Great to have. So you pick and choose with your various user communities or determine how you're working out of it to see how that'll be a best fit. Now, moving on from that, there is an enhanced feature within ShareFile. So we do have a functionality called projects. So within all of these experiences, like I was showing with folders or Outlook or ShareFile for Windows, I could work out of a folder structure. I could upload files into here. I could request files to here. But there's really no process outside of that. I give someone access to a folder. It's a dumping ground, which in some cases is great. There's login tied to it, but there is a place where you want to take that a step further. And so working into repeatable client work, understanding this concept of projects is a status board of own processes by your team. So I have a project here, which could be like a folder where I can associate it with my client, and I can now start a request engagement with my client where it's not just here's a folder, but let me assign you with some tasks that I need you to get me specific documents, provide by client a named checklist with due dates and instructions. So I'm able to come and now instead of a folder, and keep in mind that this is a web application feature, this is for ShareFile Premium. So this is outside of the folders and everything we looked at, but now you're getting into that realm of being able to create a PBC list of documents that I can assign, have due dates. ShareFile will provide notifications to your clients, and your clients also have the ability to collaborate with you and ask questions to see details on the service provider they're working with, and allow you to not just have a folder with a dumping ground, but a place to actually see the files that they're uploading, understand why they're uploading that file, review it, add a description if I need to send it back, if I need to approve this document and move forward. So now it's more of a closed loop process where we've now built a UI component into the ShareFile application to work more as a client management client structure to request those documents. We've also introduced information requests, which are more questionnaires where I can build a list of questions and gather responses. Going into this, you do have the ability to set all of these as templates that I can reuse over and over again. So if I have clients where I want to position a questionnaire or a list of PBC, that I can assign it and templatize that over and over. So you have a lot of flexibility here at the premium level now, where I can take this experience for my clients and push it a little bit further. So now it's tax season. I need to get these documents right away. I need a checklist, something that's reducing the what's missing aspect. Now switching the reins, going to a client perspective, I do have the ability to view folders and view data. It's all tied to permissions as a client. So what do I have access to and how long do I have access to it? But tying itself to that project is more of that newer capability that I have the ability to click in, and now it's an enhancement where it's focused. I have clear instructions for who it is that I'm working with, the service provider. I have the ability where I was able to ask a question, and I can now upload files or attachments that are specific. So instead of just a folder that you could open up or a link that you can send to someone and just hope that they get you the right data, if you have business workflows or if you have teams or departments that are collecting data internally or externally or creating or generating, these are those good starting points where you can use or look into these projects. From a client perspective, I have the ability where I can then come in here and I can add files as attachments. The same limitations, I can drag and drop large files, up to 100 gigs we're talking about, but you're probably not expecting that in size from an upload. We also do have some AI components, again, looking at the premium value here. If you're on the premium tier license and you are working out of the request list, that will also check the integrity as a fail-safe. This is a beta feature, something that we have customers testing out right now. but something that can be turned on if you are on premium as an admin, to let me know, hey, it looks like we're asking you to upload a passport. You're giving me something called an engagement letter. What gives? Maybe I'm confident this is the right thing. I mean, I can still submit it, or maybe I can dismiss and move on to the next thing. So from a client standpoint, it's very simple where I can complete a task, but it doesn't go with the experience, like I said, just like a client could go and read an encrypted message. Here was that message I sent earlier. I, as a client, could also be interacting with this content in a different manner. Maybe I'm just getting a secure message. Unless it doesn't want me to log in. Okay, well, either way, it would log me in. I'd be able to view the message in ShareFile. We can just envision that it doesn't necessarily just have to be a task in that sense that the end user would be doing. Now, apart from that, I know that we are running low on time, but it is important to note that at the folder level, you do have the ability, as you are working, to add, remove users. So I can bring groups of users to interact with content. You can also symbolically link users into what are called distribution groups. So as administrators, you do have the ability to link clients together within ShareFile. So if I'm looking at the People tab, there is a section called distribution groups. So you can create groups of people and then add them to folders. That would be at the folder level. Furthermore, within projects, which is more of that enhancement, I can actually link it to a newer feature. We do have some great webinars if you want to look on our YouTube page to check out some of these other features like Client Hub and projects. But these are some of those newer features that we're working on, more of a CRM feel, where I can now link my client, tailor. I can then see every file or project that Taylor has been associated with. Same thing goes with Avery, as we were just looking at. So this is more of that feel on the newer features of ShareFile, again, at that premium level. The last thing to look at here are signatures. So again, another premium value, something that we have worked really hard to bring native enhancements in to the ShareFile application, is that we do have electronic signatures. So you noticed if I'm working out a ShareFile for Windows, if I'm right-clicking, I do have the ability, if signatures are on my account, it would show here. On this account that I'm demoing, signatures is not turned on, but in the web app that I'm from, it is. So if I do have files in ShareFile, I can always just access a document and send it for signature, but we do have this purpose-built tool in here where you can bulk send files as one-off for signature, set signer sequencing, anything that you would get away with in any electronic signature tool to merge data, set it and collect information from your users, and also append data from clients that you can intelligently just have templates that are, client X, and I can assign a client a template and it fills out the data automatically. Again, we have some great webinars if you do want to check these out, where you can create these signature templates and go from there. But it is important to note that this is a feature that ShareFile offers. Now, apart from that, just keep in mind of all the inherent security that's tied to it. Your administrators have some of those policies set, so some of you might not see administrative settings. Another good thing for all of you users to note, if you are working out of the Outlook plugin, if you're doing those ad hoc shares that are not tied to a folder, every user has this section called a file box. File box is kind of that catch-all for all of your accounts where an action is not tied to it. So this is where you'd be able to see if I was sending something through Outlook, I was just dragging it in there really quickly. It would be located in this section of my account. As you can see, there's an expiration policy there. So that's good for some of those catch-all type things. And then for any file that I delete, every user does have a recycle bin. This is a 45-day life cycle. I can choose to delete these permanently or restore. Now, I think we're going to go ahead and pause it there from a ShareFile standpoint. I know that we are running out of time, but I want to know if you guys want to just go through any questions live while we're here. I can run through anything since I'm sharing my screen if anyone's been monitoring questions and want me to talk through anything. Nothing there, okay. Keep in mind, again, there are some components in here that you might not see when you're logging into the account. Always looking down here, we have some excellent resources to get in contact with support. We have our chat support. You have a customer success engineer aligned. Getting started, what's new. These are great resources that connect you to our knowledge base, but you can also go and check our YouTube page that we've linked. So self-help resources are always there, but you can also see that there's a nice tutorial. A lot of great improvements on the horizon coming with ShareFile, coming around with security, and coming around with projects and enhancing some of those experiences as well. So if you want to have a discussion, like I mentioned at the beginning, we want to make sure that ShareFile fits perfectly in your organization, that it has a standardized process. Nobody likes shadow IT. So we want to make sure that you guys are working with it and that it's administered properly, but also you as end users that you're comfortable using it. There are some components to automate some of those processes with templates or to make it easier with logging in or setting retention. But there is that shared responsibility at the end of the day where you want to get the technology set to a place where you feel comfortable doing that. And that's what we love doing and working with you guys. So I want to thank you all for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day.